A system of control and coordination is essential in living organisms so that the different body parts can function as a single unit to maintain homeostasis as well as respond to various stimuli. Human homeostasis refers to the body's ability to regulate physiologically its inner environment to ensure its stability in response to fluctuations in the outside environment and the weather. Homeo is equal to same and stasis is equal to standing still. To carry out a simple function, such as picking up an object from the ground, there has to be coordination of the eyes, hands, legs, and the vertebral column. The eyes have to focus on the object, the hands have to pick it up and grasp it, the legs have to bend, and so does the backbone vertebral column. All these actions have to be coordinated in such a manner that they follow a particular sequence and the action is completed. A similar mechanism is also needed for internal functions of the body. In animals, the nervous system, hormonal system, and muscular system are responsible for control and coordination. Humans and animals respond to a change in their surrounding with the help of nervous system. They respond to stimuli using electrical and chemical signals. Plants also have the means to respond to their environment in order to successfully live. Plants' growth is controlled by many factors. Some of the factors are environmental and climatic, while others come from within the plants themselves. External environmental factors. Some external factors that regulate the growth of plants are light intensity, day length, gravity, and temperature. Light. Light affects the plant's ability to grow because light is needed for photosynthesis. Through photosynthesis, the plant makes its energy-carrying molecules. It is also needed for the production of chlorophyll. Day length. Day length causes the plants to flower. Many other roles of day lengths are being studied, such as fruit and seed germination, dormancy, and leaf loss. Gravity. Gravity causes roots to grow down towards the soil and shoot to grow up away from the source of gravity. Temperature. Temperature affects the rate of enzyme reaction. Higher temperature, to a point, is best for plant growth, while low temperatures are needed for some plants to flower. Tropism. A tropism is a biological phenomenon indicating growth or turning movement of a biological organism, usually a plant, in response to an environmental stimulus. In tropisms, this response is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. The word tropism comes from the Greek word trop, to turn or to change. Tropisms are usually named for the stimulus involved and may be either positive, towards the stimulus, or negative, away from the stimulus. Phototropism is a growth response to sunlight. A plant that bends towards sunlight exhibits a positive tropism, and one that bends away from it exhibits a negative tropism. Light is the cause of phototropism in plants, in which a plant hormone called auxin is inactivated by sunlight on the side of the plant facing the light. On the other side of the plant, auxin causes the cells in the stem to elongate, forcing the plant to bend toward the light. Geotropism. The response of a plant to gravity is gravitropism. The root of a germinating seed will turn and grow downward toward the Earth's gravity in positive response, while the stem of the plant turns in the exact opposite direction. Gravity is the cause or stimulus of this tropism, and calcium migration is the cause of the movement. Calcium moves to the lower surfaces of roots and the upper surfaces of shoots. Elongation occurs in the cells with the lowest concentration of calcium. Thus, a root bends down towards gravity and a shoot bends upward away from it. Thigmotropism is a non-growth response to touch. Pressure sensitivity of specialized cells cause the plant to turn or twine around another object, sometimes another plant. The cells not receiving the pressure elongate, causing the plant to turn or twine. Some ivy plants turn fast enough to be observed, taking about an hour to make entire turn. The vine stem itself may turn, or the vine will produce tendrils that turn around the object and support the plant. Hydrotropism. Hydrotropism is a plant's growth response to water concentrations. The response can be positive, towards the water, or negative, away from the water. Roots, for instance, are positively hydrotropic. That means that they grow towards moist soils to avoid drought stress. Once a root cap has sensed water, it bends and then the root grows towards it. Chemotropism. Chemotropism is a movement caused by chemical stimulus in organisms such as bacteria and plants. An example of chemotropic movement can be seen during the growth of the pollen tube. This growth of the pollen tube is always towards the ovules. Movement by part of a plant in response to a chemical stimulus. The response by the plant is termed positive if the growth is towards the stimulus, or negative if the growth is away from the stimulus. Fertilization of flowers by pollen is achieved because the ovary releases chemicals that produce a positive chemotropic response from the developing pollen tube. Nastic movements. Nastic movements are plant movements that occur in response to environmental stimuli, but unlike tropic movements, the direction of the response is not dependent on the direction of the stimulus. Some of the most spectacular plant movements are nastic movements. These include the closing of the carnivorous Venus flytrap leaf when it captures prey, or the folding of the mimosa leaf when it is disturbed. Nastic movements and tropisms, or growth movements, are two important but different kinds of movements in plants. In nastic movements, the direction of movement is determined by the anatomy of the plant rather than by the position of the origin of the stimulus. Different types of nastic movements are nyctinasty. This is induced by diurnal variations in light and temperature. It is seen in leguminous plants. The leaflets fold in the evening and open up in the morning. Seismonasty. This is induced by touch or shock. Leaves of touch-me-not plant, Mimosa pudica, show this movement. The leaf consists of main petiole with 2 to 4 secondary stalks, each bearing many pairs of leaflets. The leaflets are arranged in opposite manner. When the plant is stimulated by touch or shock, the leaflets fold upwards and the main petiole droops. The mechanism of movement is based on changes in the turgor in pulvini. Pulvini are the swollen leaf bases, particularly seen among these legume plants. In the pulvinus, it is the cells of the upper side that lose water, allowing the leaflets to move upwards. Thermonasty. It is induced by temperature. For example, the opening and closing of the flowers of tulip. Photonasty. It is induced by light. Leaves of oxalis take up horizontal position in sunlight and droop down during the night. Many flowers open during the day and close during night or under cloudy sky. Thigmonasty. In the leaves of certain insectivorous plants, example Drosera dionaea, the tentacles show variation in movements on coming in contact with an insect. The touch stimulus due to the insect is transmitted to the entire leaf and all the tentacles bend over the insect. You touch a hot object and immediately drop it or withdraw your hand from the heat source. You do this so quickly you don't even think about it. How does this happen? Your nervous system coordinated everything. It sensed the hot object and signaled your muscles to let it go. Your nervous system, which consists of your brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves and automatic nerves, coordinates all movements, thoughts and sensations that you have. The nervous system is made up of billions of special cells called neurons or nerve cells. Cord-like bundles of neuron fibers are called nerves. The nerves form a network of pathways that conduct information rapidly throughout the body. A person's reaction to a situation may take only an instant, but it involves many complicated processes within the nervous system. For example, what happens in the nervous system of a person who sees a wild tiger and an instant later turns and runs away? Specialized neurons called receptors are located in the ears and eyes and the other sense organs of the body. The receptors translate events in a person's surroundings, such as the sight of a tiger, into nerve messages which are known as impulses. Nerve impulses travel along nerve fibers at speeds of 1 to 90 meters per second. Neurons are cells with a particular shape. They possess two types of long ramification called the axon and the dendrites. The axon of one neuron is in contact with the dendrites of other neurons. These contacts are termed synapses. Each neuron forms thousands of synapses with other neurons. Synaptic cleft, the space across which a nerve impulse passes from an axon terminal to a neuron or effector cell. Neurons communicate by sending electric signals along their axons. Dendrite receives information from another cell and transmit the message to the cell body. The cell body contains the nucleus, mitochondria and other organelles typical of eukaryotic cells. The axon conducts messages away from the cell body. The nervous system consists of the brain, spinal cord, and a complex network of neurons. This system is responsible for sending, receiving, and interpreting information from all parts of the body. The nervous system monitors and coordinates internal organ function and responds to changes in the external environment. This system can be divided into two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Let's take a look at the central nervous system. Central nervous system. The central nervous system CNS is the processing center for the nervous system. It receives information from and sends information to the peripheral nervous system. The two main organs of the CNS are the brain and spinal cord. The brain processes and interprets sensory information sent from the spinal cord. Both the brain and spinal cord are protected by 3 layers of connective tissue called the meninges. Brain. The brain is the control center of the body. It consists of 3 main components, the forebrain, the brain stem, and the hindbrain. The forebrain is responsible for a variety of functions, including receiving and processing sensory information, thinking, perceiving, producing and understanding language, and controlling motor function. The forebrain contains structures such as the thalamus and hypothalamus, which are responsible for such functions as motor control, relaying sensory information, and controlling autonomic functions. It also contains the largest part of the brain, the cerebrum. Most of the actual information processing in the brain takes place in the cerebral cortex. The midbrain and the hindbrain together make up the brain stem. The midbrain is the portion of the brain stem that connects the hindbrain and the forebrain. This region of the brain is involved in auditory and visual responses as well as motor function. The hindbrain extends from the spinal cord and contains structures such as the pons and cerebellum. These regions assist in maintaining balance and equilibrium movement, coordination, and the conduction of sensory information. The hindbrain also contains the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for controlling such autonomic functions as breathing, heart rate, and digestion. Spinal cord. The spinal cord is a cylindrical-shaped bundle of nerve fibers that is connected to the brain. The spinal cord runs down the center of the protective spinal column, extending from the neck to the lower back. Spinal cord nerves transmit information from body organs and external stimuli to the brain and send information from the brain to other areas of the body. The nerves of the spinal cord are grouped into bundles of nerve fibers that travel in 2 pathways. Ascending nerve tracts carry sensory information from the body to the brain. Descending nerve tracts send information pertaining to motor function from the brain to the rest of the body. The neuromuscular junction is the term for the connection between the nervous system and the muscle fiber. It is a type of synapse, a connection from a neuron to a muscle or another effector organ. It is a connection that sends electrical information to another place. This electrical information has to travel from one cell to another. The problem is that each cell is an independent unit and there is space between the two cells that must communicate electrically. Cells that communicate electrically have to have a gap between them in order to be different cells. So how do they bridge this gap? They transfer the electrical information into chemical information to cross the gap, then the chemical information is transformed back into electrical information. There are three kinds of actions that our body carries out, namely voluntary actions, involuntary actions or reflex actions, and conditioned reflex actions. Voluntary actions. A voluntary action is basically an action which you yourself initiate by your own conscious. For example, when you see a friend over at the other side of the room, you wish to attract the attention of that friend of yours, hence you may want to wave your hand and call out his name. This is done by your brain by sending impulses from it to the effectors, or in this case, your biceps and triceps muscles and also your larynx, relaying neurons, the spinal cord, synapse and motor neurons. The impulses upon reaching their respective effector muscles cause the waving of your hand and you to shout out your friend's name. This action is under the control of the will, thus is known as a voluntary action. Involuntary actions, reflex actions. A voluntary action is under the control of the will. Involuntary actions, as their name suggests, are total opposites of voluntary actions. What actually happens? Let's say someone throws a ball in front of you across your face. Firstly, your eyes pick up the stimulus, which is the sudden movement of the ball in front of your face. Impulses are produced and these impulses travel along the sensory neuron towards the brain since the stimulus is picked up in the head region. As a reaction is needed in the maximum speed possible to avoid harm, there isn't any interpretation of the impulse sent and instead the impulse passes through the relaying neuron directly to the respective motor neurons via synapse. Impulses, upon reaching the effectors, cause the blinking of the eyes, the movement of the head towards the direction in which the ball flew from, and possibly the waving of the head to protect the head and a shout from the larynx. This is the process of the reflex action. Conditioned reflex. A conditioned reflex action is a special kind of reflex action which results from the learning from past experiences or particular stimuli which was originally ineffective in producing the response. In other words, there are either inborn reflexes or learnt reflexes. For example, many people salivate at the smell of good food as they had learnt from past experiences that such smell are associated with good food and they have to urge to want to eat them, hence salivary glands are stimulated and saliva is produced and secreted. Reading is also a conditioned reflex, so are driving, cooking, and riding a bicycle. Hormones, the endocrine system. The endocrine system consists of a number of endocrine glands which secrete chemicals known as hormones. Endocrine system helps in coordinating the activities of our body in addition to nervous system. The hormones produced by endocrine glands act as messengers between the nervous system and the organs of our body. Features of hormones. They are secreted by ductless glands called endocrine glands. They are poured directly into the blood. They are secreted in small amounts by the endocrine glands. The hormones have their effect at the site different from the sites where they are made. They act on specific tissues or organs called target tissues or organs. They are known as chemical messengers as they modify and regulate the activity of the target tissues or organs. The endocrine glands present in the human body are as follows. Pituitary gland, thyroid gland, pancreas, adrenal gland, testis, ovary. Click the label to learn more. Compound produced by one part of an organism that is translocated to other parts where it triggers a response in target cells and tissues. Functions of plant hormones. They control plant growth and development by affecting division, elongation, and cell differentiation. Effect depends on size of action, stage of plant growth, and hormone concentration. Hormonal signal is amplified by gene expression, enzyme activity, or membrane properties. Auxins. Promotes elongation and secondary growth. Apical meristem is the major site of auxin production. Inhibits lateral growth. Induces female floral parts and fruit. Cytokinins. Move from the roots to tissues by moving up through the xylem. Stimulates protein synthesis. Made in roots. Functions. Cell division and differentiation. Apical dominance. Anti-aging hormones. Slow protein deterioration. Gibberellins. Stimulate elongation of cells. Inhibits root growth. Stimulate flower part development, bolting. Signal seeds to break dormancy and germinate. Abscisic acid, ABA. Growth inhibitor. Return seed to dormancy. causes rapid closing of stoma during dry periods, promotes positive geotropism.